The Urbanist is brought to you in association with the Department of Culture and Tourism, Abu Dhabi. Saadiyat Cultural District Abu Dhabi is a beacon of hope and inspiration. A catalyst to spark growth and collaboration with museums and experiences, where art and science and nature and technology coexist.
The belief of Abu Dhabi that culture is the backbone of our society.
Stay tuned for a special episode of the show, in which you can hear His Excellency Mohammed Khalifa Al Mubarak explain exactly why and how Saadiyat Cultural District Abu Dhabi is the perfect place to collaborate, create and innovate. Saadiyat Cultural District Abu Dhabi, proud partner of The Urbanist on Monocle Radio.
Hello and welcome to The Urbanist, Monocle's programme all about the built environment. I'm your host, Andrew Tuck. Coming up.
It's as much about creating that physical environment where it's purpose-built workspace for the creative industry, as much as it is about creating a truly living, breathing ecosystem.
How do our cities foster culture and creativity? In this week's episode, we look at a few developments that are underlining the need to support art, culture, design and creativity in our urban areas. From an old rubber factory in Tallinn that's experiencing a cultural transformation, to an EU-backed initiative emphasising the economic, cultural and social opportunities that the nighttime economy brings, and how a private developer is bringing design and culture to one London neighbourhood as part of a mammoth 30-year master plan. All that coming up over the next 30 minutes right here on The Urbanist with me, Andrew Tuck. We start today in the Estonian capital, Tallinn, where the ruins of a former rubber factory are being transformed into a vibrant community of creatives. We send our correspondent, Wif Stenger, along to meet some of the designers, artists, beekeepers and brewers that call this growing development home.
I've stumbled into a beehive of activity in the Kopli Peninsula of northern Tallinn, the former Pohjola Tehas factory complex. In the past 5 years, it's grown from a ruin into a vibrant creative hub with more than 100 artists, designers, and small firms. Showing me the community's beehives is the creative director, Steveli Sade. She lives nearby and finds everything she needs here.
I come here in the morning, I can get my fresh coffee and pastry. I have my lunch, I have my beauty salon here, yoga studio for leisure time, bookstore, some concerts, some parties, nightlife at Poti.
Those happy bees are tended by local coffee roaster Roland Pöllu, who says they're helping the factory area blossom.
They're excellent pollinators and crucial for these kind of fruits and other trees to bloom and make beautiful fruits. So the Kopli Peninsula is as well around here. I've seen some apple trees I've never seen anywhere else. So there is some old times fruit that still need to keep on producing.
There's plenty of budding activity in this derelict factory building, including a lush herb garden on the roof. Down below is the Botik Community Bar with its leafy backyard, one of the first new places to open here in 2019. Jula Saar, a landscape architect, and her partner Tanel were pioneers in the industrial zone, which had been abandoned for 20 years.
So we cleaned it up and we started building it. And the idea and the system was from the very beginning that we were able to do things as we wished. And we got good terms in exchange of our time and work and ideas that we put into this project.
The bar hosts DJ sets, open mic nights, markets, and events for kids indoors and in the rewilded garden.
This corner of the factory was just left for nature to take over. And when we got here, then we planned things around the trees and never really got rid of any of the things that were already here. So this was the idea, that we come here and just put the pathways where we can and benches where we can and not destroy the factory spirit that's here.
Sade shows me around the huge hangars where warships were built in the early 1900s. They now host everything from roller discos to TED Talks, though they're echoey and cold in the winter. There's a cycle shop that fixes abandoned bikes and sells them to raise money for the NGO. And across the way is Polu's Kokomo Roastery and Cafe, another OG from 2019. Next to that is another pioneer, the Karjasesai Bakery and Barbaria Restaurant, run by Kenneth Karjanen. 5 years ago, he and his wife began in a ruin with no electricity or plumbing. Now it's Estonia's only restaurant that's certified 50 to 80% organic. They're opening a natural wine bar with pinchos soon, near a community garden with chickens.
So when we arrived, there was nothing here, like wind blew through the houses, and but we really liked it because we saw the potential in it, and also we wanted to get something that's a bit further away from the city center to just not be in the fuss of the city that much, I think. And it was cheaper. Also, we really didn't have any money to rent a place in downtown.
There's another cafe nearby inside the Reed bookstore, which Maja Hallik opened a year ago. It also includes a kids' play area and an events venue offering concerts, theater, and readings.
And I think for people it works well that they can have a coffee and then sit down and read the book or just spend time here as well.
The back wall is covered by a mosaic made of Soviet-era books, forming the shapes of a woman and 3 colorful wolves, based on an old Estonian myth. It was created by an Italian artist who lives nearby, Federico Elade Peruzzotti, just an example of the cross-genre synergies at Pohjola, says Hallik.
I think it is also yet to evolve in a way, but for example here behind that door we have an improv theater. With them we have collaborated and shared the space sometimes. And also then there are different like Pohjola factory events, these markets and the days when everything is open here, so I guess these are like uniting us as well.
Next door, a microbrewery was just opened by Chris Pilkington. He worked for Brewdog in his native Scotland before becoming head brewer at the nearby Pohjola Brewery for 10 years. This spring, he and his artist wife Christina started their own playful little brewery, making small batch beers using rosemary from the Pohjola Tehas community garden, hemp, and lilac blossoms. Pilkington says the area is taking off.
I think it's definitely hitting that moment now where more and more people are kind of like coming down here, but I don't think we're going to hit like huge tourist season just yet. I think maybe next year that could be it, because right now it's kind of like the trendsetters they've discovered it, they've found out about it, they're coming down, they're telling their friends, and it's slowly gaining more and more momentum.
But is there a danger it could get oversaturated and lose its original vibe?
I think there is definitely a risk of that, and what I think is helping to mitigate that is it's a managed property, in that sense. Like, it's not just open rent, they have to approve everyone who's coming here. And I think they're doing pretty well that they don't want it to become like a party hub where it's just flocks of tourists are coming. They want interesting things going on. So, they have things like farmers markets happening.
Pilkington's still a partner in the much bigger Pohjola Brewery and Tap Room, which has revitalized another former factory in northern Tallinn not far away. Co-founder Peter Keek says that taking on a crumbling, roofless, 100-year-old submarine factory about 5 years ago was a gamble.
So we decided to take the risk, and we were super happy because it's a beautiful building under heritage protection. We are very proud of our history, and also we can house the restaurant, and people have found the area, and overall, we're so close to the sea, which wasn't the case during the Soviet years. All the seaside was under military gardens. The locals couldn't really go there.
Back at Pohjola Tehas, I climb up for a bird's-eye view from a glassed-in yoga studio and adjacent rooftop. Yoga teacher Kelly Mattus, who's just taken over the Portal studio, says she's already been embraced by the community and invited to get-togethers.
Everybody is invited. For example, like in June, we're going to go on top of that building to have a coffee morning, and also all the people who live there are invited as well, so that we can all just talk. So yeah, I would say that there's a very strong community here.
Then it's time to head back to the center of Tallinn on a tram, which is free for city residents, like all public transport in the capital. The trip takes less than half an hour, plenty of time to savor this dream of urban renewal. For Monocle in Tallinn, Estonia, I'm Whiff Stenger.
The nighttime economy and its importance to the city is something we've trained a key eye on here on The Urbanist for many years. Recently, sustainable urban development expert Simone D'Antonio wrote a baseline study for the UrbAct network, Cities After Dark. The study was the first on the nighttime economy ever funded by the European Union and brings together the knowledge of a series of cities that are creating integrated nighttime policies. To find out more, I was recently joined by Simone, and I began by asking what we mean when we talk about the nighttime economy.
Nighttime economy is usually known for being mostly related to bars, dining, activities, entertainment, but it's not only that. There are so many activities that happen at night from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., series of services, urban transport, waste management, management of green areas, port and logistic infrastructure. So there are so many things happening in the cities. And one of the objectives of this network is to study how to improve the quality of life in cities at night.
You've just completed a big report funded by the EU. What were both you and they trying to find out with the research that you did?
The major thing that emerged from the report is how much the nighttime economy is still unexplored in Europe in terms of potential of growth it has. The research is going through different experiences carried out at global level, at European level, both in terms of governance of the nighttime economies, but also on different activities and services that are taking place in the cities of the network and also in other cities. So this knowledge is very important also for improving how cities are creating governance frameworks for the nighttime economy and how they are conceiving this part of the economy not only as part of the entertainment or dining industry, but as a testing ground for innovative projects, for innovative activities.
Now, you found some very interesting examples of people trying to change the way that their nighttime economies run, to add new services. But perhaps first of all, we could start with the city of Malaga, where they looked at their music offering and felt that there needed to be a shift.
Yeah, Malaga has worked a lot in the last years in the regeneration of the city center. In particular, they focus on the regeneration of this former theater, which is now one of the major hubs for musical and events. It's owned by Antonio Banderas and his family. Is running this very important theater in the market area of the city, which is not only attracting tourists and visitors from different parts of Spain and Europe, but it's also contributing to revive the local economy at night in a neighborhood that was completely deserted in the past few years and right now is one of the major night spots of the city. So they calculated also the impact on a series of shops which are located in the same area, like the tattoo shop or other small commercial activities. And when there are some night activities, some night theater representations or concerts, very positive impact. And this is also leading to bring this neighborhood again at the center of the nightlife in the city.
And further afield in Budva, an interesting project there because I think here they felt that they had perhaps a reasonable music offering, but it was too associated with one or two styles of music. They felt they needed to expand their remit.
Yeah, Budva is working a lot on the quality of music played in the city. Budva was famous for a strip full of clubs close to the seaside. All these clubs were shut down a couple of years ago, but in the whole city, there are many good bars, many restaurants which are doing great cultural activities at night. And in particular, one of the bar owners is organizing activities for other bar and restaurant owners for improving the quality of music that is played at night in the city. So a series of artists, DJs are invited there in Budva for some summer programs, which are having an impact not only where they are playing music, but also reviving the debate on how much is important the quality of music for the quality of the night of a city.
And were there any other cities that caught your eye with doing innovative things?
Yeah, one great example that is popping up from our network is what Braga is doing with the opening of a night nursery close to the hospital and university. So it's a nursery open 24 hours, which will give the opportunity to families to leave kids there, especially families with both parents working at night. And it's a very interesting example of how cities can promote the nighttime economy in a very regional way, also providing services that are useful for improving the quality of jobs. In Genoa, cities are working on a night opening of public libraries. And right now, the city is improving this action, also trying to expand the network of bookshops overnight in different neighborhoods of the city. So there are many great experiences that the cities of Cities After Dark are testing in their integrated action plans that will be developed in the next few months. And I'm pretty sure that these examples will contribute also to revive how the debate on nighttime economy in Europe is evolving.
Well, amazing to see such fine examples from Budva in Montenegro and Braga in Portugal as well. What's the ambition here? Are you hoping that these cities make a network, that they pass on information to each other, share best practice, help one another?
The cities are working on two different levels. At transnational level, they are taking part in study visits and transnational meetings where this knowledge is exchanged. For instance, we were in Berlin for a study visit to the city that best represents the cultural and business vibrancy at night. So with a series of meetings with club owners and other cultural actors and representatives of the Berlin Club Commission. At the same time, the cities are working at local level with a series of local stakeholders, which are grouped in what is called urban local groups. So this group of people, which is particularly interested in the case of Cities After Dark, because it's full of what we usually call unusual suspects. So the people who normally will not be involved in a participatory process by a local authority, but in this case are particularly important for developing testing actions and integrated action plans of medium and long term. So these local groups are full of DJs, artists, night activists, cultural organizers, and the type of engagement that is emerging in many cities is very promising for the future, since many cities would like to turn these urban local groups into night commissions or other forms of collaborative governance of the nighttime economy.
And just tell us finally, the nighttime economy still in some places isn't very well understood. People think, it's just kids going out at night, people getting drunk, it's about nefarious things going on. But you're obviously out to show that it's about, as you said, nurseries and education and looking after local youth and all sorts of things. Do you think there's a chance to finally permanently change the debate and get people to think about the nighttime economy in more positive ways?
I think so, because when we talk to the mayors, obviously the first thing that comes to their mind is about safety of public spaces or how to limit the activities of bars and restaurants at night. But when you talk about the impact the nighttime economy has on the economy of a city, when you talk about the quality of life of people and how to improve it through a series of actions like making public parks and green spaces available at night, especially in times of climate crisis that we are living in, particularly important way for also for improving social cohesion and for improving the sense of place of people. When you realize that nighttime economy is all that, is also the creation of new services, new infrastructures, or how to adapt a city to make it vibrant 24/7, I really think that the debate can change, and also cities that are mostly focusing on security or quality of public spaces, they can try to foster a different type of governance of these challenges.
My thanks there to Simone D'Antonio. Finally today, we head to London's Greenwich Peninsula, an area of the UK capital which is starting to see the fruits of a vast 30-year master plan led by property developers and urban regenerators Night Dragon. The master plan has already seen the development of a design district, which opened back in 2021, as well as a large programme of privately funded cultural events that are open and for the most part free to the general public. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by the Director for Greenwich Peninsula at Night Dragon, Laura Flanagan. Thank you so much for being here. Perhaps first of all you can explain a little bit about what you do at Night Dragon and your work on this design district in Greenwich Peninsula.
So we as Night Dragon took over Greenwich Peninsula as a development about 10 years ago now. So Greenwich Peninsula as a development in itself is massively ambitious. It's 150 acres. It's a 30-year master plan. We're going to deliver 7 districts, and within that design district is one of them. So we will deliver 17,500 homes, but we very much view it that we're not just delivering homes in isolation. From the outset, creativity, community, art, culture, they've always been the core pillars of what we're doing at Greenwich Peninsula. And Design District was a really logical evolution of that. When we approached it, thinking about designing and delivering a purpose-built home for the creative industries, it felt like a very needed thing in London and a very logical step for us as a developer.
So what's the take-up for the design district? What kinds of people have come there to use it?
So we have about 170 businesses that call the district home. About 1,800 creatives are in and out of there on a weekly basis. We have everything from creative dance studios such as Claude Ensemble through to Queer Circle. We also have like individual creatives such as individual ceramicists, tattoo artists. We've got some really interesting creative tech businesses such as Brian Audio. So for us, it's as much about creating that physical environment where it's purpose-built workspace for the creative industry as much as it is about creating a truly living, breathing ecosystem where those creative minds can come together and collaborate and thrive.
Now, Tommy, it's easy in the old days for developers to set up a district and then disappear and leave people to get on with it. But you're very much involved there to this day. How important is it for you as Night Dragon to be present? We're going to talk about some of the events that you put together. Because creativity is hard to get flourishing, hard to bed in. Is this part of the process of making sure that the place is a success?
I think you can't build a community, you can't force it. The best you can do as a developer is create the best possible physical space for that community to come together and to thrive. If we look at something like the creative industries, the value they bring, they generate over 115 billion a year, but yet the support they have received historically just doesn't level up to that. So for us as a developer, looking at the development, and when you're working with 150 acres, you need to think, how can you create a space that people will come together? Seeing the creative industries on a daily basis use and thrive and grow and collaborate in the design district is really important to what that means for the greater Greenwich Peninsula development. We have 5,500 people that call it home, that live there. What the design district does for them and for everyone else that comes to live, work, visit at the peninsula, we're not just creating homes, we're creating a new piece of London, and that needs real consideration.
I use the property developer word, but you tend to focus on the notion of yourselves as urban regenerators. How does the wording kind of affect how you see the proposition of what you do?
The reason that distinction is important for us is that if you went into this with a 1D view of just building homes, it would be an interesting challenge of what a 150-acre site would look like. When we developed that from the outset, there's over 50 acres of that committed to open and green space. So when we talk about being urban regenerators, what does that mean for the people that are there? We have to give the people of London what they need and what they want, and that is more than just focusing on the building of homes.
When we think about London changing and expanding and growing, it's an epic district that you're building on that scale. It comes with responsibility as well.
Absolutely. From the minute Night Dragon took over the Greenwich Peninsula site, one of the first things we delivered was the Now Gallery, which always is and always will be a free art gallery that has some of the best emerging artists. We couple that with the art that we have peppered throughout the peninsula. We benefit from 1.6 miles of the river around the peninsula. It's a really unique offering, and people can go and enjoy that and enjoy countless pieces of art. We have probably the largest free-to-view viewing of Damien Hirst art pieces. So our commitment to the place is really vast. We are there for a long time. We're there for the long haul. Like I say, it's a 30-year master plan, and we're a third of the way through that, and we're excited for what comes next. But at the core of that is the people that are there.
Now, the other interesting thing you do is you do organise some key events for the peninsula, for this district, to make sure that life comes out of the buildings and people do come together. You've just had the Urban Village Fete back in May. Tell us about that. And again, why is that the job of the developer to run these events?
So we have a year-round event and activation programme. The summer programme for us kind of kicks off with Urban Village Fete in May. And this year it was bigger and better than ever. So this was the 9th year that we had put this on. We had over 30,000 people attend. And for us, it's about creating these moments in the calendar that are shared experiences for people, where they can discover things about themselves and a new part of London, things that they have never thought of before or things that they didn't think they would necessarily enjoy. And that starts with the fete, but it runs year round. So we have an interesting summer programme coming up. Festivals in the summer are a really important piece for the London community. We have Urban Village Fete as a festival, but we then we've got a jazz and food festival this July. We have Turning Tides, which brings together the best of local and global music talent. We go into LDF in September, and then we also host part of the Greenwich and Docklands International Festival. But, the really important thing for us as developer is just not these big moments. There's also those small moments where community can come together. So outdoor cinema, we're launching a new Crazy Golf that we've collaborated with Graphic Rewilding on. How do we create these moments where people can explore and experience something new? And that is the responsibility of us as a developer. We truly believe that. We've been investing in that for over 10 years and we plan to keep it going.
And do you feel that the world has changed now these days, that it is the job of the developer to organise these events? Or are you thinking in the future these get passed on to other organisations, arts companies, or back to, I don't know, would the council ever take it on? But you feel this is your job as a developer to make sure these things happen?
I think in this country we're really fortunate that we have things like the Arts Council that do support our arts and culture communities, but that funding will only ever go so far. If we look at things like how funding for the creative industries has reduced over the last decade, and understandably so, that money has had to be prioritised elsewhere, we need to look at how do you balance then the value that the creative industries and arts and culture bring. And if we as the private sector don't step in, then where will that support come from? There is a disconnect between the value that they bring and the funding and the support they receive.
And this Peninsula Summer of events, it's open to the public. Anybody can come down and join them?
Absolutely. A majority of the events are absolutely free to attend. We have the Tide, which is a elevated linear parkway that runs all the way from Peninsula Square. So the minute you step off the Jubilee line at North Greenwich, and it takes you all the way to the river where you can jump on the Uber boat and go into town. So when we say it's about everyone to enjoy it and there's something for everyone, we've always stood by that. It's an easy statement to make, but it's something that when we look at the programming that we put on, we truly want the peninsula to be enjoyed by as many people in London as possible.
Just tell us finally, the vision thing, how far are we through the development process? How much more to be done? It sounds like you're quite busy still.
We're still definitely busy. So we're about 10 years into our 30-year master plan. We've developed 3 of the 7 districts. So the first 2 were our residential districts. We launched Design District, as you mentioned, in 2021. We've still got a good bit to go. And we're really excited for the part that it plays in the London landscape.
Laura Flanagan, thank you so much for joining me here today. And that's all for this week's episode of The Urbanist. You can get new editions of the show every week. Just follow us through your favourite podcast provider. And you can also subscribe to Monocle magazine for regular reports on all things design, architecture and urbanism. Just visit monocle.com. And another thing, why not join us on Monday the 15th of July in Paris for a live edition of The Urbanist. Myself, along with Saint-Gobain's Vice President of Communications, Laurence Pernaut, will be speaking to an expert panel about building better cities. And it's going to be followed by a reception at the Saint-Gobain HQ. For more information and to RSVP, simply contact Hannah Grundy on events@monocle.com. The Urbanist is produced by Carlos Rebello and by David Stevens, who also edits the show. I'm Andrew Tuck. Goodbye. Thank you for listening, City Lovers.